there's a lot of people who feel like the GRU indictments were the predicate for another round. Now, I've heard two different things. I've heard 60 days and I've heard 90 days. In terms of the window where DOJ policy is, you're not supposed to talk about an investigation that could impact an election. And I got to double check on this.
Yeah.
I have a buddy who was involved in public corruption cases at one point, and he would know. But Manafort's trial starts next week. 90 days, as far as I can tell, is more or less August 1st. 60 days is September 1st, right? September, October, more or less.
Yeah.
And I guess the question is like, what do you think the next 3 or 4 months are going to be like? And how does this play with? And I guess the NRA stuff is also in play,
Right.
RT. And I will say, we had Marcy Wheeler on. She has the story I'm sure you're aware of, how she had to turn in a source.
Yeah.
And she's convinced that there's more stuff coming, and that it's bigger, and that it implicates Trump directly. And the only thing I would also point out that we should know about this indictment is the specificity
Yeah.
of how they knew and what they knew. Also, to me, feels like a red flag.
Oh, yeah.
Right? I mean, this has the same sort of feel as the Cohen tapes.
Yeah.
Like, dude, we didn't want to do this, but we're telling you, and we're telling everybody, and we're blowing the cover of some people.
Yeah.
And that type of stuff seems to be what Marcy Wheeler is upset about.
Yeah.
That there have been assets and individuals who are in mortal danger or have been because of what has been revealed through this stuff.
Yeah.
And the White House and the FBI, having to give up sources to the White House and to Republicans in the House.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And the only other thing I would say I would add to the mix, and it's RT. I don't know why they would be reporting this, but supposedly Julian Assange may be leaving London soon.
Ecuador is almost certainly going to. And I mean, that also has a lot to do with what's happening in Ecuador. And like this guy Correa has a hand-picked vice president, successor who's significantly more to the right than Correa, and also is trying to put Correa in jail. They just did an Interpol notice on Correa and accused him of being involved in a kidnapping scheme. So I'm sure it's connected, but this has a lot to do with what they're trying to do, and it might not be part. Although
who knows?
It's all coded.
Who
it's
knows?
all connected.
Yeah.
So what? How? I mean.
It would have been impossible to predict the last 3 months, so it's really hard. I mean, I definitely believe there's more coming, and I think you get the impression that what they've gone public with so far, primarily with the Russians, is like a prelude to going after the Americans, and I think the NRA thing in particular is evidence of plenty of material, not even just directly implicating Trump, but directly implicating this sort of entire conservative movement.
Well, what do you guys think of that was kind of like what Mark Blythe floated to me, and he's self-admittedly like not an expert in this, but he has talked to people involved who he's like, I've talked to people now who are somewhat directly involved in this, and he's like, that's another thing is that this investigation could basically turn, and that's the David Cleon piece, essentially, that especially when you got rid of Citizens United, you have these like lobbying / PR / spying shops with unlimited amounts of money coming from Russia, Dubai, Saudi Arabia, Israel, and it could like implicate almost the entire modern political class on some level if you really start following this stuff out. And that's something that scares them in the investigation.
Well, that's the thing that I think has been, that has always occurred to me, that like just replace Russia with like Boeing, or like replace Russia with like,
and get away from the Russia xenophobia.
And it would be just as disturbing.
Yeah.
I mean, I find it very far-fetched that we would get into World War III with Russia.
Yeah.
And
a little bit.
I'm not as concerned about that as a worry. Are we maligning them? Maybe, somewhat unfairly.
Well, that actually is one of the sort of left-wing lines among the skeptics, the hyper skeptics that really bugs me.
Xenophobia against
No,
Russia.
but not just the xenophobia, but the idea that well, what do you want? You want World War III? But it's like what I would like is to for someone to take down the international kleptocracy. I don't want missiles launching, but I would like to see this endless free flowing dirty money not be free flowing.
And if you
I
want
feel like there's got to be a middle ground.
Yeah, there is a way of saying, or how about we will de-escalate mutually, deal with the kleptocracy issues, and if you want to deal with the military stuff, say you obviously, international law is dead, but you need some type of international conventions to govern cyber warfare, obviously, because it's completely unchecked and everybody's doing it to each other all the time. We did it to Iran, unleashed a major computer virus across that could be something that comes out of it. How about we mutually agree to not hack each other's elections and steal each other's intellectual property and all of that?
Stuxnet was. I'm not.
No, it was
Stuxnet
it was
apologist,
at their nuclear reactor.
But yeah, it was
yes.
That is more it's sort of.
It's still illegal.
Of course,
still implicates the process. It's a different thing.
It's a slightly different kind of thing.
Although, by that logic, if we're going to say that's, because Iran, I'm just saying. No, I know you're not.
I'm not.
I know you're not, but I'm just saying Iran says their program is for energy, and it's never been proven otherwise.
Right.
And if you start getting into dealing with people's power grids,
then exactly. Power grids is sort of another sort of element of this. But it is. I don't think. Look, they can't even muster what they need to attack Iran. Never mind. Essentially saying, selling to the American public, we're prepared to lose a major city or two over this thing.
But that was also, isn't that people just not knowing? Even at the most tense times, there's still communication between Russia and the United States in Syria. Hey, we're both fighting a proxy war here and bombing the hell out of this place.
Yeah, but
killing a ton of
they're on the phone with each other.
Yeah, let's make sure we don't escalate this because that's how they do.
Yeah,
it's actually another lesson in international kleptocracy and imperialism.
So I'm not an expert on the Russia story, but I do spend a lot of time on Twitter. And
it feels like the beginning of an ad.
That's awesome.
Which basically makes me an expert. It would seem that people on both sides of this issue are very overly focused in on Russia, to the exclusion of more important things that we were just talking about. There's people on the left who see Russia as this anti-colonialist freedom fighter, checking U.S. power and giving us a taste of our own medicine. And there are people, I would say, in the center who are conflating Russia with the Soviet Union, and they're saying all kinds of crazy anti-communist things when Putin is a capitalist, and it's a mess on both sides, people.
I haven't seen the
the Russophobia.
I haven't seen the claims that it's communism. I've seen the overblown notion of the threat that Russia, as opposed to these actions, mean for the United States. Like I say, if Boeing was doing this, it would be just as disturbing.
And they probably are.
And they would probably do it better.
Yeah. I think they probably would, yeah.
There's also this bizarre anti-Slavic strain I've been seeing where people criticize Russian culture and things that have nothing to fucking do with it.
Well, okay,
would they be doing that if it were Boeing?
Let's get back to your premise.
Have you heard their pop
music? It was on
though?
Twitter. Right? It's on Twitter. There is
the hive mind.
Well, I understand, but I don't even know if it's the hive. I think it's it is, Twitter is, sort of the margins of everything on some level.
Well, Russians are cold and brutish people. We all know this.
Well, the funny thing, I will say this, which I think sort of plays into this, is that there is sort of a quality to this scandal, as opposed to it being Boeing or whatever. I don't know. I'm just using the word Boeing.
GE, the Koch brothers.
Whatever, exactly. That does have a feeling of the emails that you get that are written in English that you know are not written by a native speaker. Like there is like a couple of things, like literally in terms of like the stuff on Twitter, but even the calculations, you know, seem to be a little bit like there's just a couple of things that are just like slightly off. Like they can't quite get what will play and won't play.
Oh yeah,
in the States. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, that's why they needed. So this is like, boy, funneling their money through the NRA is a great investment for them. Like,
it's so crazy it might just work.
Yeah,
you know, it's like, like it is honestly, it's perfect. Like, what is more American? You know, from like the outside, like you've asked Europeans, like, what is America? Cowboy hat, gun.
Like they might have tried the McDonald's Corporation first. Like they might have first gone to them and been like,
there's like a debate in some Russian intelligence unit, and one guy's just like, Nate Silver says it's looking very bad for us. And the guy's like, no, victory goes through dissatisfaction in Midwest states. They're tired of elitism of gay Obama.
that actually gets at what is one peculiar aspect of this, which was the degree to which elements in our society welcomed it, because it wouldn't have worked if it wasn't turbocharging already existing strains in our politics.
Without a doubt.
Barbara from Connecticut, right?
Shout out to Mary Lou.
What was her name? Mary Lou.
Okay. So yesterday we played. I mean, you talk about like the susceptibility to this, that the Russians could think like, and I don't think they came up with the idea of the NRA, but she was courting this Republican advisor who knows what courting constitutes. And and essentially you can see some of the outlines of how they came to the NRA, and who knows if the Russians were like, wow, this stuff is, or, you know, I mean, probably not, because I think, you know, the idea of like corruption is not something surprising. But I mean, I think from like the fairy tale notion, I mean, a lot of people out there, I think if it ever comes out that the NRA was this corrupt, I think are going to be sort of surprised.
Yes.
Now, I wouldn't be. I mean, to me, it just seems like a completely corrupt premise almost of that organization. But the idea that there are the susceptibility, we played a clip yesterday from a C-SPAN show. But
Tuesday.
Tuesday. Should we play it again?
Sure.
Yeah, why not?
Let's play it again.
Minute, right?
So on Tuesday, we played this clip.
In Newington, Connecticut, line for independence. Mary Lou, good morning.
Yeah, good morning. I'll try not to sound too awful, but I want to thank the Russians for interfering with our election to stop Hillary Clinton from becoming president. That
Can
woman
we pause and just and cut on Pareene, who's got his head in his hand. He's just like embarrassed for everything. All right, continue.
Woman has got illusions of grandeur, and so hasn't her husband. That man, the whole time he was in the White House, was just fooling around sexually with Monica Lewinsky. He is an accused rapist. He has never denied it. And his wife never did anything to stop him from doing that.
Mary Lou, let me ask you, do you think Russian interference was the reason that President Trump won in 2016?
Yes, because the Russians interfered. I mean, what would we do with Hillary in that White House? That woman, she doesn't know what she was doing. What a mess she made of Benghazi. What she did with those emails to put a server in her living room or wherever she put it.
All right, okay. First off, two things. One is that guy.
Yeah.
That guy, the host.
Yeah.
That guy, he should get a medal.
He should. Yeah, he's like
the poker face that he maintains. This.
Just what a pro.
C-SPAN's great at that. Brian Lamb was a king at that too for a long time.
Substance-wise,
it's subtle.
We should also say that like the one thing that we did learn in this indictment is that The only thing that was secure
Was
the only thing that was secure, whether it was the State Department emails, whether it was the only thing that was secure was that server in her living room or basement or bathroom or wherever the hell it was. That's the only thing that was secure.
Yeah.
Okay, so after we played that video, we're like, we're watching.
That's the next. It is. It's the next one. It's the next step.
I give you the next step.
Yeah.
Jacob Wall, who is this dude? He's a MAGA blue check. And if Russia assists MAGA candidates on the internet in this year's midterms, that's not the end of the world.
The phraseology of that is beautiful.
Right. Yeah, it's really.
I'm not exactly co-signing on it.
It's almost like a lawyer looked at it first, you know?
Yes.
Cassandra Fairbanks responding to McKay Coppins. If Trump and company just pivoted to, aren't you glad Russia helped us to defeat Hillary Clinton? Would there be any serious blowback from the base? Cassandra Fairbanks answers, no. I mean, I'd be cool with it. I'm already there. If Russia was involved, we should thank them. Kirk Bridgers, speaking as a Trump voter, Hillary is a greater threat to our republic.
Well, can you imagine if like the left side were doing that? Like if Bernie were like, if Venezuela was involved, we should thank them.
I don't know. Perhaps Venezuela did hack their emails. Perhaps they can find more. Perhaps they could get to work. But, nobody talks about the private meeting we had. Why would I listen to the CFO? Rasta don't work for the CIA.
This is what's going to happen, right? I mean, they're going to ride this. I was on a show yesterday with Bob Torzelli, right?
Oh,
I mean,
the former New Jersey senator.
Yes.
Far out.
And he was like, Mitch McConnell needs to go to Donald Trump and say, you need to have national security people in this meeting with you and Putin.
Did you say maybe you really didn't take bribes?
Otherwise, history is going to judge you and this and that. Oh, and he was getting very passionate, and he definitely believed it. Like I heard him in the green room, and he was just like he was really. He really believed it. He really believes it. Wow. And then of course I was like, well, we already know how history is going to judge McConnell. He told us in the summer of 2016 when he first heard about this stuff that. If it was brought up, he was going to punish everybody politically.
Yeah.
And this is not going to happen. Mitch McConnell's going to ride this out. This NRA thing, I know people are saying like, oh, the Republicans are covering up. There may be a couple that know.
Right.
There may be a couple, but they're all going to be able to say like, I was getting money from the NRA. I had no idea what was going on with that money.
Yeah.
It was coming from the NRA. The NRA may go down, which would be beyond... I mean, just beyond all of it, right? Like, I mean, just the one thing that basically brings us sensible gun control in this country is the Russians.
It's like a criminal prosecution.
Right? Like, when do I call in to
if the Russians are going to bring down the NRA, I say I welcome it.
I'm glad of Russian interference.
I'm glad the Russians are interfering.
Election because now my kids can go to school and don't have to worry about being shot up by a semi-automatic weapon.
Russia, if you're listening, keep giving money to the NRA.
If you're listening, some of us might find it very helpful. There are a lot of weird mid-level operatives that could be bribed by sex with even the most mediocre looking of your spies. Continue doing what you're doing.
All right.